Hi everybody, welcome to the dungeon. My name is Robin and today is Flameworking 102.44 Core Form Vessels. So I've been waiting for months and months to share this demonstration with you all. When I was teaching flameworking years ago, the museum that I worked in had an amazing selection of ancient Egyptian and Mesopotamian core form vessels. And I was just really intrigued by them and how they were made. So I did a lot of research back then and made some for myself. And so I'm really glad to be able to share this with you all today in this demonstration. It is lengthy and it is in 3 parts, so take your time watching it. If you're interested in making one of these and you have any questions, let me know. Other than that, I hope you enjoy this fascinating dive into these historical vessels. And with that said, I hope you're all doing safe and well out there. Thanks so much for joining me, and I hope to see you next time in the dungeon. We're going to start out with a nice clean workspace. Things are going to get a little messy here. And I am going to use a couple of tools here. The first thing I want is a nice pair of shears. And then I will need a 1/4-inch mandrel. A nice thick mandrel is really helpful. You can make this on a thinner mandrel if you want it smaller, but a thick mandrel works great for a larger piece. And finally, I have my fine steel wool, and this is like perfect for the modern day core form vessel. So I'm just going to cut off about 1 inch worth of the steel wool and open it up. And I'm going to stretch this out a little bit. And this is going to create a nice thick core for my vessel. So I'm just going to start out by wrapping it up nice and tight. You want this to be as tight as you can get. So I'm going to hold it by the bottom and just continue to tightly wrap it as tight as I can get it. I don't want any space in here. I want to make sure that there's the least amount of air possible. All right, nice and easy. Just keep twisting it up and you'll end up with like a kind of a bundle like this. And I'm going to tighten it up even more, just compress everything down. And this is our the beginning of our core form. All right, so the one that I am going to demonstrate with, I used my favorite Foster Fire Smooth and Tough bead release, but I hardly have any left. So I have a standby bead release. It's the France Art Glass bead separator, and I've never used this before, so I'm crossing my fingers to see how this bead release goes. I hope it's as good as the Foster Fire. There's the color I remember right there. I used to use this stuff when I worked when I taught classes. Okay, so let's go ahead and dip the bundle in there, the core, and you want to make sure you're kind of stirring it around a little bit. You want to get as much saturation as possible. If it kind of falls apart like here, no big deal, because now what we want to do is just start to squeeze the form together and push out all the liquid that you can. And then once, you can work on the bottom a little bit. And once you have your basic form ready, then we're going to dip it one more time. And this is kind of like the final dip. You don't want to touch this for a couple hours. Okay, so I've set this aside and I came back a few hours later and it's a little bit more dry. It's kind of like a clay now. So at this point, what I can do is start to smooth it all down with my finger. Smooth the sides, smooth the bottom, finalize your shape. And now you're going to let it sit for a couple months. And make sure that you add a little to the top there. That's kind of like the seal. And after a few months, this is what you're going to have. Now, here's the Foster Fire bead release, and it dries white, but it's very hard. You can file it. You can shape it with a sandpaper. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So now we're into part 2. All right, so it does take some time. Give yourself a good 4 to 5 minutes to start to heat up the core. It's very dry. It's been sitting for a long time, so I'm going to start out way out in my flame. And I'm just going to hang out for several minutes, just slowly warming it up. If you notice it starting to crack or break, you might be heating it up too fast, and or it might not be dry enough. So give yourself plenty of drying time. Okay, so I'm still heating a little bit more further into the flame now. This is after a couple minutes. I feel a little bit more comfortable. You're not looking for the surface of this to become red hot. Okay, we just want it really warm. Now, you'll see it becoming a little bit more red on the surface of the bead release as we get a little closer into the flame here. All right, so now we're ready to start our first wrap, and the color I'm using right here is Iris by Double Helix. I wanted to give this core form vessel kind of an ancient look, and I think that using the Iris and its reduction quality kind of helped get it there. I don't know, you tell me. All right, so we're starting out by adding our first wrap around the core, and the glass sticks right to the bead release. So just continue to wrap, and you know, like with every video I do, this can be whatever you want, whatever colors, whatever designs. I'm just trying to show you how I'm doing it. Okay, so I have added a little band, a couple wraps around, and I'm just going to start to kind of shape it up a little bit. I can even out the top or the bottom of the band if I need to with a butter knife. And then I'm just going to go ahead and start to heat this up and smooth it all down. So every time I am adding a wrap of glass, I'm going to take time to smooth it. And because it's very large, it's easier for me to use a marvering pad, a larger marvering pad, to kind of shape it in the flame as I go. And once that is all nice and smooth, then I'm going to go in with a cane. I'm going to use the I was inspired to use the Moreland field cane for this one. So when you use this cane, you want to kind of twist it back and forth, and it looks just real nice, kind of like a field. And I'm just going to wrap this around several times until I get a shorter band than the top, but it does get a little sloppy. And man, was I shaky today. As I continued to work on this, I felt like my fingers got shakier and shakier. So you have to forgive the shakiness. I apologize. But we're just going to continue now to heat and smooth and roll this out into our shape. The marvering pad that I have under my torch is a 12 by 12 inch graphite pad. It's really, really handy for rolling on a larger surface. And I use both hands. Sometimes one hand gets a little tired and I'll switch over and continue to roll and smooth and shape. All right, a little bit more there and we will continue. All right, now I'm going to follow that up with a little bit more of the iris. So we're going to just start our wrap and continue wrapping around the base. And as I am wrapping and working on different areas of this vessel, I always want to make sure that I am thinking about what part of the glass is also cooling down. So I need to always maintain a good, heat throughout the whole piece. So I'm going to go ahead and start shaping that. And I'll use my marvering pad as well. And also, I just wanted to let you guys know, when I am only using one hand to hold the mandrel, it is, I am a lot more shaky. When I'm working in the middle of the mandrel, I kind of feel like I have a lot more control. So that's another kind of difficult thing for me to deal with, is working on the end of a mandrel. And I know I'm not the only one. All right, so we're going to add a little bit more. We're going to add some white, a nice white band to the bottom. And because it's right next to the iris, it's a reducing color, this iris, and it will fume this white. So even though it looks like pretty and white right now, it will turn yellow in the end from the fumes. Just keep that in mind. All right, I'm going to do a little bit more shaping here on the bottom half, and then before I add the tip to the core, I am going to give everything a nice full heat and make sure it's happy, because I want to start adding some detail and design here. All right, so what do I have here? I'm going to use just a thin glass stringer, and I'm going to start to spot heat and do a plunge and twist all the way around. So I am just grabbing right where the black and the white meet and pushing in a cold stringer and twisting it. You can only push so far because you'll end up pushing it right up into the mandrel. And when this is all said and done and it's all cleaned, you can actually see a little bit of this twisted pattern on the inside, which is really beautiful. All right, and we're just going to continue. Not all of these were perfect, and I don't expect them to be. If you look at antiquity and historical pieces, they're not perfect. And, you know, maybe they just didn't have the right tools, or, you know, things have changed a lot when it comes to using and melting glass. So I'm sure it was a little bit more difficult for them to work on these pieces. Who knows, maybe not. But either way, I do love doing historical pieces and kind of learning how they were made. And when I learned this method, I was so happy. It was like the coolest thing ever. So I hope some of you guys decide to give this one a try. All right, we are done with our little swirls there. And as soon as I finish the swirl, I immediately go to heat the rest of the piece. And I will spot heat it in between. Each time I do a curl, I will spot heat the whole vessel. I just had to cut some of that out because it really took a long time. This whole vessel took about an hour and 20 minutes maybe to make. So make sure you have plenty of time set aside if you're going to make one of these. Give yourself at least a good hour. All right, so I have the top band of white on there, and I'm going to mimic that same pattern on the top. I'm just going to smooth it down a little bit first. And I'm always continuously shaping and smoothing and heating and keeping it warm. You know the drill. Okay, so now I want to finish the bottom, and then we will complete the top and put the handles on, and we'll be done. So this bottom part is, it is more of the iris. So I'm just going to fill in everything that I can until I get all the way to the end. And as I am doing this, you know, things are going in a little bit faster speed, but you will notice that every, you know, couple of seconds I will flash the top part of the vessel, because I'm spending a lot of time down at the bottom, and the top part is losing heat rapidly. So you always want to make sure, even if you're adding glass, to kind of move over and heat that area up so it does not crack on you. I'm going to give this bottom half as much heat as I can and get it totally molten, and it'll be a lot easier to shape up into a nice amphora point at the bottom. And sometimes I like to use two hands. So right here, doing these kinds of rolls, I do like to use two hands, and I'll even use two hands to roll as well. So I'm actually standing up next to my torch right now working on this. All right, and as soon as I like the way this looks, I'm going to go ahead and continue with the top part. Of course, always making sure everything is nice and warm as you go. And we're going to go ahead and start our swirls again. So I'm going to spot heat and just pull some of that glass up and around. If it doesn't work the first time, hopefully it'll work the second time. You can go ahead with this and go back into a swirl if you didn't quite get there the first time. Just give another heat and try again. But for me, I kind of like how each one is a little different, so I'm okay with this. And as soon as I'm done with one swirl, I will heat the whole vessel up and then spot heat, do my swirl again, and then just do that repetitively. Heat the whole thing up, make sure it's happy, and then continue. It takes a little bit more time, but it's worth it to have your piece not break and crack on you. Trust me. All right, so now I believe we have one more to go here. And I just really am enjoying working on this too. It's a lot of fun. Okay, so now I'm going to heat everything up and start to smooth it down. Now, you don't have to make a large vessel like this. I have seen people do a core form vessel very small, and that works just as well. You don't have to, it can be any size you want. If you have a smaller torch, maybe you can't work this big, so make a miniature size one. All right, I am just going to add one more little bit of detail that I thought would be interesting, and I'm just going to start heating the bottom up and pull a few lines down of white. I thought that would look a little bit more interesting at the bottom. So I'm going to continue to just spot heat and draw a few of these lines down with a glass rod. You can also use a pick if you would like. It really is up to you and what you're most comfortable using. A nice heat in between everything and continuing our lines. All right, a few more and we will be ready to kind of finish things up. What I do want to put a lid on this, and I think that might be for a different video or demonstration, but putting a top on it I think would be really nice. So I'm thinking about that for later on. Anyway, continuing along, I'm just heating the bottom up and smoothing everything out, giving it a nice angled effect, and also remembering to heat up the whole vessel. And working on this nice marvering pad surface, it's like working in a hot shop on a marvering table, on a big stainless steel table. And you can use stainless steel, nice shiny stainless steel for a marvering pad as well. It just gets much hotter. All right, so now, what are we doing here? Okay, so I want to put the lip wrap on here. So I think this is still, I think it's all white and iris on this piece. Okay, so I'm going to just add a nice thick wrap to the top. I'm kind of like not really stretching the glass around it as much as I am laying the glass down. And my rod got a little too short and my fingers got a little too hot. So I had to finish up with these tweezers, which kind of left a dink in the top, but that's okay. I'm going to put the handle there. I think if I had, just stopped for a second and calmed myself down, I probably could have fixed that little dent in the top, but I was feeling a little weak at this point and shakier. So I had to just go, okay, Robin, just keep going, you can do this. All right, so after everything is nice and warm, we're gonna start putting the handles on. You don't have to do handles, but I love to show how to make an easy handle. And it's just by adding several dots. So we're gonna start the top part of the handle, and I'm gonna add a dot on one side and the other. Try to make them right across from each other. Heat everything up again. Let those kind of cool down for a second. And if they're covering up too much of your pattern, you can always pull them up with a butter knife like I'm doing here. And now we're going to add the bottom part of the handle. So we're going to get a little bit more of this color hot, and we're going to add it right into the pattern, a little bit lower than the first dot. Just depends on how wide you want your handles to be. Same thing on the other side. And again, add your dots and then heat, heat, heat. I will tell you that as I was working on some of the parts of this vessel at the end, I would every now and then hear something that sounded like a crack. And as soon as I hear anything that sounds like a crack, I immediately flash and heat everything up until it's nice and warm. And then I'll continue. So I'm adding another row or section of dot, and this will just make it a little longer. So you see where I'm going here. I'm just going to continue to add dots on top of, like, stacking dots until they're long enough to pull together into a handle. I also am trying to make everything nice and even here. And a lot of flashing. Okay, so we're just about ready to kind of pull everything together here. So I'm going to add another dot just to give it that final extension that it needs. And one more time, a lot of heat. And you can already see like the curve of the handles a little bit. You know, it's all from gravity, but you can kind of see them starting to become handles. Now here at the end, I'm just going to stretch my dot from one side to the other. And then I will completely heat everything up and use my graphite rod to widen the hole a little bit and make it the way I want it to look. If it's too big, you can heat it down and kind of get it to compress again and try again if you need to. So let's do that again. I'm going to add my glass from the top and just stretch it to the bottom. And that's pretty much it. You just want to be careful not to collapse it. So gravity, I'm holding it up and then I'm holding it down, just trying to get it hot and it's kind of molten and ready to round out. If I need a little help shaping it, I could use my marvering pad, a pair of tweezers, whatever works for you. All right, I'm just going to clean things up a little bit here. I'm looking to make them as even as possible. And I know at this point in the vessel, I was a little frustrated that they weren't like these perfectly round little handles, but I realized that, you know, it just is what it is. I could add a little bit here, take away a little bit there, but in the long run, I just wanted a nice, smooth, and as evenly possible as I could get. Not sure what I'm doing down there. I think I'm just kind of like trying to help shape it up a little bit more. And I don't know why I didn't get that in there. I apologize for that. But I'm just using my mandrel, my dowel rod, to open those holes up and even it out a little bit more. All right, I think we're just about done here. I do want to give this a nice reduction in the end. Maybe I'm not done. You know, you can play with this forever, but there does come a time when it's time to be done. And I think I am just about done here. I do want to share with you at the end how to take this off of the mandrel and clean it. So stick around for that if you want to. I'm just going to give it a nice reduction, and I have a reduction flame going, and I'm just kind of down in that flame until I like what I see. I think I overdid it a little bit, but I'm really happy with the way this turned out. And yeah, a little bit more, and we're going to anneal this. It looks great. I love the way it looks. I hope you guys do too. So let's see it cool down here, and we are ready to take it off the mandrel. So to do this, I have a pair of pliers, and they're needle nose pliers, and I'm just going to start to crush the top part of the core, and just try to get as close as I can without messing with the vessel. But you just want to pull all of that off, and it's very easy to take away. Just comes right out. Now the inside, I'm going to start out by grabbing all of that steel wool with the pliers and giving it a good twist, and it should come right out. And look at how small it got. Isn't that crazy? Anyway, there's the hole, and this right here is a perfect scraper. It's just a tool that ceramicists use. I'm sure you could find something like this that will help you to scrape everything inside and get it out. Now, the bead release that I used here, the Foster Fire Smooth and Tough, is excellent bead release. It holds nice and it gets nice and hard. And here I spent a couple hours off camera just scraping all the bead release out until there was no more left. And then I ended up finishing it with a really fine sandpaper. And that's it, you guys. I hope you enjoyed this one. You'll see it at the end. I have a little bit left in there, but it's almost empty. And with that said, I hope to see you all next time in the dungeon.